So you do have to be aware of it. That is obvious. But on the other hand, you can't let it control your life. You can't let it be, you know, a barrier to you being yourself and enjoying people. You know, when I was Secretary of State, I was on an official trip, and we finished the business of the day, and my team said, you know, you want to go out and, you know, have something to eat, maybe something to drink. And so we ended up at a bar that was called Havana. Now we had no relations with Cuba at that time. And so we're in this bar called Havana, and there was dancing, and there were phones, and then there it was, out in the world. And then there were people, you know, accusing me of all kinds of things because I was dancing in a bar named Havana. And so, you know, you just have to kind of get over yourself and have as good a time as you can under the circumstances. Initially, I was really quite almost sort of teary about it because I thought, wow, he was finally held accountable. And there's so much to hold him accountable for, but it's been very hard to accomplish that. And a jury of his peers found him guilty. And it was, you know, it was like, wow, okay, the rule of law, our system, you know, it did work despite all the intimidation and the threats that he made against the judge and all of that. And then, of course, I got sent all these memes. People saying all kinds of crazy things, like, he is the first person who made interference in Home Alone 2 to get convicted. I mean, and then, you know, one of the pictures that turned into a meme that was in the video of, you know, Barack Obama and me after he spoke for me at a convention in Philadelphia, and I went out to, you know, thank him. We were backstage, and neither of us could remember what we're laughing about. It has been so cleverly used.
Yeah.
Comments about everything, including addiction. But you know, the other thing that really, you know, struck me, and this was, you know, very clear to me, is that he's been charged with very serious issues, and people kind of looked at that case in New York and thought, well, that wasn't the most serious, but that was a case about election interference. The hush money was paid to prevent you, the voters, from knowing what had happened. And it was a clear case of interfering with the election. The case in Georgia, the case in Washington, and then, of course, all of the theft of, you know, classified materials, another thing that is incredibly serious. So part of the reason why he's running is to avoid being held accountable in court on all of these matters. And when his supporters, you know, say, oh, it's political. The Biden Justice Department, among other things, charged and convicted the Democratic Senator Robert Menendez, just charged the Democratic Mayor of New York. And we go down with this. And the Justice Department, under President Biden, has been, you know, very clear that it will follow the evidence, and all of the efforts to try to impugn it by Trump and his supporters are really, ill-advised. It is not true. Incredible reporting that the only book he had in his apartment was Mein Kampf. And one of his mentors was the lawyer Roy Cohn, who basically said, you know, power is all that matters, never apologize, never complain. Somebody accuses you of something, accuse them of the same thing. So I think his father was like that. You know, his father was arrested in a Ku Klux Klan rally in the 1920s. And so there's a pattern of power seeking, of domination. And you know, something like Trump, and I tried to make this point in 2016, but it was hard to break through because, you know, the way he was presented to the American public was as a television star. He was a successful businessman, which was not true, right? He played one on TV. It sounded very tough and strong. But he wouldn't pay his bills, he bankrupted small businesses, and so the way that he has behaved has always been a kind of, you know, super macho attitude toward everything, and so I think that there are personalities like that, Jeff. There are people who, because of their childhood, because of whatever, you know, character they have, you know, feel like they should be dominant in all settings, and that's how he conducted himself. And then he got to play that on TV, and then he, you know, ran for president with the same approach. And the thing about it, which is so, I think, important to understand, is it's good entertainment. People like that. He's a character. People can't turn away. They want to know what he's going to do or say next. And the press doesn't know how to cover him. And so it's very difficult to try to pin him down because he won't take responsibility for anything. And I think that, you know, one of the things that I talked to Kamala about was, you know, to debate him in the debate, because I said, basically said he was Putin's puppet. That got him upset. And I said that, you know, you can't trust a person with nuclear weapons who you can bait with a tweet. You know, that was, you know, those were like about substantive issues, and he could care less about issues. So she baited him about how boring his rallies were.
But obviously he wasn't.
And so when she crossed over and stuck her hand out, whoa! The fact is, as I said earlier, they do not still to this day know how to cover him. And so they let him get away with things, they overlook things. They engage in false equivalencies. He said today he would jail his opponents. She still needs a border policy. I mean, it's like crazy. And so I think part of the problem is it was both a benefit and a challenge for Kamala, because being vice president is a very tough position. And becoming vice president, even though you're the first woman to do so, it was in COVID, and it was just really difficult. And she was in Washington most of the time because she had to go to the Capitol to break ties in the Senate to pass the legislation that the president and she were pushing. So I don't think people really got much of a sense of her. I mean, I've known her since she was a DA, and she was, absolutely great in that. She was a great attorney general. She, went into the Senate, and some of her cross-examinations with some of the witnesses were, just superb. So, I followed it, and I knew her, but, most people aren't obsessed with politics, and so they didn't know. So all of a sudden, Biden is out, and she's going to be the nominee. And I think the press was scrambling too, like, okay, oh my gosh, what do we do? How do we cover her? A great speech at the convention. We just talked about the debate. Her rallies are filled with enthusiasm, and nobody leaves, and the crowds are big. The press is like both sides now. Well, we say something bad about Trump, we have to say something bad about, her. It does such a disservice to people. And one of the biggest problems is, the press was trying to push Joe Biden out even before the debate. They were relentless. And I've been around him a lot. I had seen him, I had talked to him about issues, and was he older? Yes, but he was on top of his brief. I could talk to him about, anything that, from Ukraine to, the Inflation Reduction Act, and always he knew exactly what was, needed to be talked about and what, we needed to do. So he had a disastrous debate, and he never recovered from it. Trump is incoherent. It's like a giant word salad. with sprayed hair on top of it. And so, the way he talks to his true believers, his cult members, is like, I don't know what would happen if you were, like, in an electric boat, and a shark came by. Well, I'd like to know what Hannibal Lecter would say. The migrants are out to kill you. Listen, that is the signal. That is what his followers want to hear. They forget about Hannibal Lecter and sharks and the rest of it because he has sent an arrow right into their gut about what concerns them. So he goes, talks for like an hour, 90 minutes, and there'll be like 5 times when he,